For the Hip Hop Nation, world famous After Hours spot. You're listening to OQ's Wrestling Wrap Up. And I have a legend in the house with me, Mr. Bret, the Hitman Hart. Bret, thanks for coming by today.
My pleasure.
Now, you have the book out, My Real Life in the World, in the cartoon world of wrestling. It was released in Canada about a year ago, and it's being released in the States now. What kind of reception are you getting to the book?
I think it's doing really well so far.
Okay.
You know, I'm still kind of waiting to hear. It's only been a few days that it's been out, but everything indicates that there's a lot of fans out there that have been waiting for it, and they're all snapping it up, which is good.
Okay. Now, you've been working on this book because you've been carrying around an audio device for your whole career.
Well, not all of it. I carried it around all my WWF career. For 14 years, I carried one around. The 6 years that I worked for my father, I didn't have a tape recorder, but I couldn't afford one.
Right.
But I had lots of letters and lots of stuff to work from for those years. It's a pretty comprehensive book that way.
Now, the book, it's brutally honest. You talk about, drug use in the book among professional wrestlers. You talk about your extramarital affairs in the book. How has it affected your family in just being so honest? Because you even talk about, for instance, you having the stroke back in 2002, I believe, and you had to have security at the hospital to keep certain family members away. So what kind of, how did it affect your family, being so honest?
Well, I don't even know how I can answer that because I've only heard from two people in my family about the book, and I'm not sure even the two that talked to me what their thoughts were. They kind of like it. I don't think anyone has any big problem with it. I think that for the most part there's harmony in the family. Everything that happened with my family, as far as when my brother Owen died, and there was a lot of dissension there.
Yeah.
And that still exists in the sense that it's nothing anyone can do about it now. It's spilt milk kind of thing, and we just but some of us don't talk to each other, and that's unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. As for the rest of it, as far as my own kids and my growing list of ex-wives and stuff like that, but I think that the truth is that it clarified things for my kids. It didn't.
Right.
There's nothing in that book that they sort of didn't already hear before, but I think it made them understand better what it was really all about, and that I know that my kids have a deeper, more appreciative understanding of what I was going through. And I think I feel better about my kids having read the book, and I know the younger ones haven't read it yet, but I'm sure someday they'll read it and they'll appreciate what it was like to be me.
Is your relationship with your ex-wife Julie, is it okay? Because she had to read. Did she already know what was going on before she read that book, or?
Yeah, I mean, I cleared things up. We got divorced before Owen even died.
Right.
We were divorced then, and no divorce is fun, and it was something that maybe had been brewing for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't blame her, and I really don't blame myself either. I mean, I was a man that I was 20 years old when I got into wrestling when I met her, and I never came home. I lived out of a suitcase for 300 days a year for 23 years, and whatever extramarital affairs or whatever you want to call them, dalliances or whatever that I had in those years. I don't really look on them in a shameful way. I look at them as I look at everything I went through, whether it was cocaine or steroids or it was a product of the times, and I survived all that stuff, and I don't have any regrets. I don't think I'd be sitting here today if I'd done things a whole lot differently than I did. I think you have to take care of your heart and your mind sometimes, and people don't understand it when they're a million miles away from you.
Okay. Do you follow the wrestling product today?
I try to, but it's getting harder and harder.
Okay.
They got no Bret Harts in wrestling anymore, and there's not a lot of wrestling sometimes, and it's more. I'm a little weary of the soap operas and the talking. It seems like every time I turn on the TV, there's two wrestlers talking on the microphone, which
right.
I grew tired of that a long time ago.
Right. Do you think storylines in the world of professional wrestling, is it moving too quickly? Because back when you were wrestling, it would take, I would say an average storyline would take about 8 months to a year to fully develop, culminating at, let's say, a WrestleMania. Now we have pay-per-views like every month. So it's like, okay, boom, boom, then you move on to the next.
Yeah, maybe it's just the wrestlers themselves. Not even the wrestlers, but the people that are telling the wrestlers what to do and sort of directing things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're not. They're not. To me, good wrestling always needed. Really great wrestling needs to be somewhat realistic, and the storylines are better when they're realistic. Like,
Okay.
for example, the brother line war I had with my brother Owen
Mm-hmm.
was a good storyline. People identified with that, and I think for the most part, people kind of bought it, and they really believed that there was two brothers that had this fallout, and it was real to a lot of people, and we would never insult their intelligence by sitting together in the bar after
Right.
talking with the fans. We made a lot of sacrifices for the fans' sake to make
Make it believable. Yeah.
Make it believable. And I think in today's wrestling, maybe it's harder for them to do that, and maybe the people that are coming up with these storylines need to put their heads together and maybe try to make wrestling a little more real, because I think wrestling's starting to fall into a different kind of category now, where no one really takes it serious anymore compared to like when everyone's sort of moving in droves to UFC and MMA type of
Mm-hmm.
fighting, because it gives them that release, because it is real. And wrestling, as long as we used to give that fix of violence and sort of the kind of fighting and stuff, but it was there was always a question mark as to whether it was real or not. And today it seems like everyone knows that it's not real, so they don't pay as much attention to it.
Would you attribute some of that to books like this, the internet, and whatnot? Is it good for the business? Would you say?
You can't pin that on me.
No, I'm not you specifically, because there are plenty of books that came out before your book.
A lot of them.
You know.
I think that if anything, I think my book make you appreciate what I thought wrestling was all about and what's missing in wrestling, and I think that's a big part of what the point of the book is that it's changed and turned into something else now, and the wrestling I knew and loved is not the same anymore. And wrestling wasn't about a lot of choreographed flips and rolls, and
Right.
today it's a little too. When I watch wrestling today, I just go, nobody really would ever fight like that in a bar, like in a real fight. Like nobody would ever even take those kind of ridiculous chances to do a triple somersault onto somebody. And I think that all they need to do is kind of go back to basics a little bit and give them a little more real wrestling, mixed with you want lots of action and flips and rolls and stuff, but just not a whole